We welcome you to the second floor of the Duncan Student Center alongside Kian Bagisto, Tyler Reedy. I'm Jacob Iron. So happy to have you with us here for this Central Michigan game. And it's starting to feel like fall out there a little bit, which means it is perfect time for football season. We got a good one coming in this week, but let's get right into it. You look at last week, we talked about Notre Dame versus NC State. It was a test. It was that final test before Ohio State. And so, we're all college students. We have teaching assistants, so we thought we could be the teaching assistants. Let's give Notre Dame a grade since it was that test. We'll start with you, Tyler. Where are you on that grade? What was that letter that you thought that Notre Dame was able to respond to?
Well, Professor Irons, hope you're enjoying your week off from grading.
I am.
Hope I could make your weekend a little bit easier. But yeah, I think the Mendoza curve might take this down to an A- just because the rest of upper-level college football is so good this year. But you can't not give Notre Dame an A with the way they've responded to these first 3 weeks. Looking back on it, in all honesty, this is probably the best start to a season Notre Dame has enjoyed in 8 or 9 years, going back to the middle part of the 2010s. The Irish have taken care of business. Last week, they showed they could respond to some adversity early on. Right out of the lightning delay, Audric Estime went 80 yards to make that first push toward a big Notre Dame victory, and then the defense later on in the afternoon made another stand as NC State neared on the scoreboard. Notre Dame's getting the job done, and now they've got one more opportunity ahead of Ohio State to prove that this start is worthy of an A.
Worthy of an A. But now, Mr. Kian, what grade are you giving them? Are you going to be a little harder? Are you going to be the TA no one wants to have in class?
Well, Professor, I am an ACMS major, so there's no one does a curve. I'm going to go a little negative here. Yes, Tyler, I agree. This is one of the best Notre Dame teams in history, as we are only 40 points away from an all-time Irish scoring record. But last week, there were some negatives, as we had 4 sacks allowed, which is very shocking for ND's elite offensive line, with future top 10 pick Joe Alt and maybe first or second round pick Blake Fisher. We also did have sweet turnovers by Xavier Watts and Benjamin Morrison, but our pass defense was still a little stingy, with 260 yards of defense, or pass offense allowed, and we also took 3 drives for our offense to do anything because of high NC State blitz, which halted our offense completely in the tracks. But overall, we showed that our versatile and multifaceted offense can do it against good teams, and it's not just a fluke. So I'm going to give us a solid A-, no Mendoza curve.
A-, no Mendoza curve. Pretty solid. Take it a win. Hey, looking at a 4.0 right there, guys. I'm just saying, you average the 2 scores. But ultimately, we have a game in front of us this weekend. Although we want to talk about the game in front of us and the game behind us, let's talk about the game in the present right now. And I think it really speaks volume when you look at Marcus Freeman, who ultimately said this week, I know somebody's going to ask about Ohio State in the weekly press conference, but we have 12 opportunities in front of us, and they have an opportunity this week with the Chippewas right here to have that opportunity, to have that statement in front of their home crowd a week ahead of time, ahead of Ohio State. But they're still a potent offense. Kian?
So the keys for the game, number 1, keep their quarterback Emmanuel Burt Jr. in the pockets, because when he is out of that pocket, he is Lamar Jackson, Action Jackson. Last week, 101 rushing yards, 66-yard long, and 2 rushing touchdowns. But when he is in the pocket, they can get nothing done. Over the past 2 games, they have averaged 140 passing yards with 3 turnovers, and last week he had a 38% completion percentage. For the non-statistics majors, this means keep him in the pocket. When he's in the pocket, locked up, he can do nothing, and ND can dominate, and then spread the ball out for Notre Dame. The reason why Notre Dame's offense has been one of the best in history, and as I said earlier, 40 points away from breaking the all-time scoring record, is because we get everybody involved on the ground and on the air. Estime, Jeremiah Love, Merriweather, great house, who lives in my dorm, by the way. Great guy, so going to look to keep that offensive stuff going.
Ziggy zaggy, ziggy zaggy.
Oi, oi, oi.
There we go. Siegfried Hall, represent. Mr. Reedy?
Yeah, anyway, I'm glad you mentioned Burt Emanuel Jr. I remember watching a game of his last year in the late stretch of the action season. He ran for almost 300 rushing yards and 3 scores as well, so he's dangerous. And Notre Dame, not only to keep him under wraps, but also set the tone early on in the game. They've got to win in the trenches. Notre Dame struggled out of the gate running the football at NC State last week. You even look back to a game like Marshall last year where Notre Dame couldn't get the job done against a seemingly inferior opponent. Notre Dame couldn't run the ball with Audric Estime, couldn't stop Marshall's running back on the ground, and it proved to be a big issue. And I'm looking to see Notre Dame rack up some sacks as well. Irish have generated A lot of pressure, among the most in college football so far this season, but the results haven't quite been there. Let's see if guys like Jordan Botelho, Howard Cross, who was a big impact player last week, can step up and get it done.
And you looked at it on that video. They played New Hampshire last week, and New Hampshire FCS team and New England are very proud, but they only beat them by 3 points, and their defense gave them a fits. And you look at this Notre Dame team, this is a defense that could give the best teams fits.
No question, no question. Notre Dame, we heard about it 2 weeks into the season when they gave up 3 to Navy, 3 to Tennessee State. They're upset when they're giving up points on the board. Doesn't matter the opponent. They feel like they can be that dominant, whether it's through the air, on the ground. They've proven it so far. They got another shot this week.
They've got another shot indeed, but also, while it might be week 3 here, we also got NFL. We'll take a quick break, look at the NFL, but we got to thank Keen for coming on and stepping in. We'll bring in Ryan Murphy on the other side. Stay with us. This is Shamrock Sports on NDTV.
Ladies and gentlemen, we just had a fantastic week 1 of NFL football, and it's so great to have the most exciting league on earth back in our daily lives. Looking at the week 1 matchups, there's a whole lot of news to overreact to, so let's see what some of our experts had to say.
To start, let's talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. Fifth-year Bengals head coach Zach Taylor entered the season with plenty of promise for his team. For starters, after back-to-back AFC Championship appearances, the Bengals look primed for another long postseason run. However, the team did not look great, with star quarterback Joe Burrow not even touching 100 yards just the day after signing the largest contract in NFL history. In addition, the Bengals defense looked weak against a rather mediocre Browns offense, letting up 24 points. However, the Bengals season is not done, as this team has plenty of star talent and tons of reliability throughout the years. Overall, I see the Bengals getting ready and primed for another long playoff run as they prepare for next week against the Baltimore Ravens.
Week 1 of the NFL season, there were a lot of teams to overreact to. There was only one that stood out in my mind, and that was the Green Bay Packers. Losing Rodgers, Packer fans were a little skeptical. How is the year going to go? How is Jordan Love going to play in his 4th season? And he looks like the star us Packer fans wanted him to be. He might be our star quarterback for the next 15 years. Receiving core looked fantastic. Romeo Doubs is an absolute legend. And Christian Watson, our wide receiver 1, wasn't even on the field. Going on top of that, Aaron Jones looked like a top 5 running back. A.J. Dillon might be top 15 behind him. Our offensive line, we had a little worries about, looked great. Adding that with our incredible defense of Jair Alexander, Darnell Savage, and the rest of the secondary, and Quay Walker, who has the interception of the year through week 1, is taking that big sophomore step. The defense that was projected to be so good last year for us and really held back might be what we all thought it could be with a lot of the young guys developing. In a conference, in a division that saw Minnesota lose a game to Tampa Bay and Chicago now looking great, we have the opportunity to do something special. Granted, Detroit looked absolutely fantastic against the Chiefs, and Minnesota is probably going to bounce back and they'll be just fine. But overall, the Packers have a real shot to make some noise this year.
Thank you so much. There's a lot of overreactions in the NFL. I know my fantasy team is looking pretty good right now. But now let's get to your wildest fantasies, and these are the games you are going to be looking at that you have this opportunity. And look, oh my goodness, Ryan Murphy stepped in.
Glad to be back, Jake. It's been a while since I've been on this set. I think it's been a couple weeks, so I'm happy to be back.
He went to Raleigh. He had a fun time in Raleigh, but
ask him about it.
Yeah, we'll ask him about it for sure a little bit later in that NC State. It might not have just been a test for the football team, but maybe for the broadcast team as well. Yeah, a little hurricane issue. But let's get looking. This week is a little, as Pete Thamel called it, this week on SportsCenter. Doesn't have that big of a bite to it, as like there's not too many top games, but don't worry. We've got some games to look out for.
Yeah, and to your point, not a single top 25 versus top 25 matchup, but one that's almost just on the verge of that is Kansas State-Mizzou. 15th ranked Wildcats heading to Columbia for what's expected to be Mizzou's first non-conference sellout in over a decade. So this is going to be a big one. Mizzou, let's not sugarcoat it, they stunk last week against Middle Tennessee State. 23-19 victory. They're going to be hungry to get back after it. They'll also be hungry to avenge what the Wildcats did to them in Manhattan last year. 40-12 Kansas State victory last September. The Tigers want to get right, avenge that problem from a season ago, and this week is a great opportunity to do it early on.
Yeah, ultimately, Ryan, got another good one as well.
Yeah, and just like you said, we might not have any top 25 against top 25 games, but that's not what college football is all about. Sometimes it's about the rivalry, so I'm going with the backyard brawl, West Virginia and Pitt. I was so excited when this series came back last year. Pitt took the win in Pittsburgh last year. This time, going to West Virginia. Two teams that really, really don't like each other. It was 38-31 Pitt last year. Pitt coming off a 27-21 loss to Cincinnati. They're going to be motivated in this game, and it should be really entertaining to watch those two rivals duke it out on the field.
Yeah, it should be a great game indeed. And I got a more modern game as my game this week. And this game, it's in prime time, and there's a reason for it. It is Purdue Syracuse. If anyone remembers last year, I'm going solely off 2022 here. Last year, it was a fabulous game. It ultimately came down to a Syracuse field goal, and this was the game that everyone started talking. Notre Dame, when they were going to the Carrier Dome, that made them a game, and this was that big win. I think these two teams are really good, and Vegas thinks so as well. They match up well together. Purdue's only 2.5-point favorite. Look at this game. It's going to be on primetime on NBC. I'm excited. Look at it, circle it, highlight it. I think it's going to be a great game to watch. However, another game to watch, and it's a little bit in the future, but we have that opportunity. Notre Dame versus Ohio State next weekend. We don't need to talk about it. It's a big game. But now the big conversation is, Week 4 has a great slate of games. Will College Game Day come to South Bend? And that's the conversation we're having now. So really quickly, I think we've had this conversation every production meeting possible. We've done the math. They got to come, right?
I think so. Notre Dame, Ohio State, the back end of just a one-off home and away series. It's going to be a top 10 matchup. You know that unless something catastrophic happens this week. I think the other big game on the table right now is Oregon, Colorado. ESPN's been all over Colorado through the first 3 weeks. I think they might want to lay off that a little bit, and they got another chance to maybe go up to Oregon when USC comes into town later on. But Notre Dame, Ohio State, it's just a no-brainer. With the Irish wear green game, Ohio State will bring a big fan contingency as well. Going to be a great environment. You can't pass that up.
Can't pass it up. And ultimately, so now that we know, I think we're all in favor of them coming. Now the bigger question. We wanted to think outside the box. They go to Library Lawn when they've came in the past. But now, we are 3 college students on this campus. We scour it. We walk it. Let's go for some good opportunities. We know this campus better than anybody. Where else should they go?
Well, I live on South Quad in Fisher Hall, and I am a huge South Quad fan. Best quad on campus, so why not go to South Quad? You got the Golden Dome view. If you situate it in the right direction, it'd be absolutely beautiful. And where do people go when they come on campus to take photos? They go to South Quad. They get a photo right in front of the Golden Dome. That's what College Game Day should do, too. And be plenty of space there for all your Notre Dame fans and, as I hate to say it, all your Ohio State fans here as well. Plenty of space to watch the show. I think that'd be a great spot for them.
Yeah, ultimately, you also have the 1993 show as well. The first time they took it on the road was here in South Bend. I know you have a special fan in attendance that might have been part of this.
Yes. My own mother was a first-year student here at Notre Dame that year of the game of the century between Notre Dame and Florida State. Yeah, you're exactly right. A little Notre Dame trivia right there. The Joyce Center, specifically the Sports Heritage Hall on the west side of the building, the first ever on-the-road, at-site College Game Day show. Wouldn't that be interesting to see how things would unfold if they put it back in there?
It would be very interesting. Also, look at that, Chris Fowler, very clean-shaven. Chris Fowler indeed. But it wasn't only football going on these past couple weeks. As if you follow tennis, it was U.S. Open time in Arthur Ashe Stadium, and our own 2 new correspondents caught up with it to really figure out what's going on.
Hey Irish fans, I'm Avery White.
I'm Ben Rohr.
And we are here with a recap of one of the biggest events of the summer. That's right, the U.S. Open concluded in New York this weekend at Arthur Ashe Stadium.
Yes, and first we are going to take a look at the women's final between Coco Gauff and Sabalenka. Avery?
Yes. On Saturday afternoon, 19-year-old Florida native Coco Gauff defeated Aryna Sabalenka, but not without a fight, I must say. After losing the first set 6-2, Coco remained very strong mentally and really did not seem to waver in confidence. That being said, with the support of an American crowd behind her, Coco used her mental stability to come back in the second set, leaving Sabalenka to bear all of the pressure. I do really think this came down to mental strength, as we can see Sabalenka becoming increasingly frustrated, especially with the crowd against her. She then took a medical timeout amidst the third set to have her left leg massaged, but that did not prove to be enough. Straight from there, Coco was able to take advantage of her home court in the U.S., as well as Sabalenka's dwindling confidence, and secured the final 2 sets of the match. After accepting her trophy, Coco thanked the Williams sisters for the inspirations that they are and for making the dream more believable.
I mean, they're the reason why I have this trophy today, to be honest. They've allowed me to believe in this dream. You know, growing up, there wasn't too many just black tennis players dominating the sport.
But Sabalenka did not go home empty-handed either. Instead, she moved up to the #1 spot in the WTA rankings, making this her first time achieving this position.
Then the next day we saw the men's final between Novak Djokovic and Daniil Medvedev. Could this match have been a battle of stamina, a battle of the wills? Novak wins the match in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6, 6-3. And this, could have been due to the fact that Medvedev had just won a grueling match against #1 ranked player in the world, Carlos Alcaraz. It didn't let him start the match with as much intensity as he would have liked to. And Novak, had just won a straight set, and let's be honest here, straightforward match against Cinderella semifinalist American Ben Shelton. I say this because we saw 2 years ago in the U.S. Open final, Medvedev come out of the gates firing against Djokovic and actually beat him in straight sets when it was Djokovic who had the much more grueling tournament and entire season going for that calendar year Grand Slam, playing a bunch of tournaments that year. Now we saw the flip side where Djokovic had all the stamina and Medvedev was really tired out. You see, even in the first point of the entire match, this test of stamina, with the 36-year-old Novak winning a near 20-ball rally against the 27-year-old Medvedev on an unforced error. Djokovic also won 84% of his net points to Medvedev's 73%, using a serve and volley tactic that did him a lot of good. Medvedev also stood incredibly far back on his returns, allowing this strategy to succeed even further, and causing Medvedev to only win 31% of his returning points.
Yes, definitely a very historic U.S. Open on both the men's and women's sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Novak getting to number 24, most for any man all time, tying Margaret Court, nearing that most out of anyone all time, and Coco getting the Americans back on the board at the U.S. Open with wins. Absolutely electric. I know it was in my dorm room. I can only imagine what it was like in Arthur Ashe Stadium.
For sure. It was definitely a great experience in my dorm room as well. It was great to see Coco up there receiving her trophy from Billie Jean King, who fought for that equal pay 50 years ago for men and women, especially in the sport of tennis. Just a very emotional, beautiful moment out there.
Yeah. Well, that's it from us. Back to the desk.
We thank you, Ben and Avery, two new correspondents. I think they got a future out there doing a couple more segments for us on some U.S. Open coverage as well. Coco Gauff, Medvedev getting it done there. But we also could bring in the man, the myth, the legend, our Stanford Steve, JJ Post, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go win some money.
Stanford Steve without the degree, I say we're going to get the money.
Let's go get some money. Let's play our favorite game, Shambookie. I'll start things off. My game, there's no qualitative. It's all qualitative. There's no quantitative for why I'm picking this. Give me Wyoming. I am all in favor of the Cowboys. They are traveling to Austin. 28.5. Really? This Wyoming Cowboys team took down Texas Tech. I'm just saying, they looked pretty good. They looked good. I think they will make it closer than 28.5. There's just no doubt about it. You look at time and time again, teams that ultimately don't always slam dunk the layup that they have in front of them when they have that opportunity. And I think that's what Texas have after last week taking down Alabama in very fabulous fashion. That was a great game to watch. But I think they might be a little sluggish. They still might be riding that high. Give me the Cowboys to get in there and make sure that you're able to win some money on that.
Well, I'm going to take it to the Big Ten. Penn State at Illinois. It's a noon game on Fox in Champaign, Illinois, and I think it could go one of two ways here. I think we know for sure Illinois' offense is probably going to struggle.
Hey, Irish.
Their quarterback, Mr. Altmaier, had a tough time last couple weeks. 8 combined sacks between his first 2 games. Luke Altmaier is a mobile threat, though, so if Penn State can contain him, I think they'll hold Illinois' offense down. It's either going to be one of those classic early season Big Ten games where nobody can score points, or it's going to be something where Penn State puts a decent amount of points on the board. But either way, with Illinois' offensive struggles as expected, I think we'll keep this one under 48.5.
Under 48.5. Do you hear it here? Now, I love yours. Yours is going to be the best in our production meeting.
I know JJ's not going to love mine. Georgia Southern going on the road to Wisconsin. They're 20-point dogs. I think there's no way that Wisconsin beats them by 20. Wisconsin coming off a tough loss to Wazoo last weekend. Georgia Southern, they're a good football team, coached by Clay Helton. I got them making this one a lot closer than it's supposed to be.
You got leaders and dogs, JJ.
Tyler talked about the big noon game of the week, Illinois, Penn State, but that's not where big noon kickoff is going. It's going to the primetime show in Colorado. Now, I don't usually like giving super big favorites, but Colorado State head coach said when I talk to adults, I take my hat and my sunglasses off. Well, I'm putting the hat and the sunglasses on. Colorado are going to be motivated. When they play for prime, they play hard. I'm taking Colorado minus 23.5, and I don't think it's even going to be close to that. Colorado by 40.
Colorado by 40.
Okay.
Look Look at that, folks.
You heard it here, folks.
The props.
The props.
How about
the
it?
man, The man, we had the jump cut.
Prime, if you'd like to sponsor NDTV, we will accept any and all donations of sunglasses.
Sunglasses. But we'll take a quick break and hear from our sponsors at Amazon. This is Shamrock Sports on NDTV.
Hi Irish, my name is Elise Dahoney and I'm NDTV Director of Operations. If you'd like to support NDTV, make sure to click on the link on the screen or in our description. It's an Amazon link, will take you straight to the site, and any purchase you make through that link, we receive a small portion of the revenue. This is a great way to support NDTV and get all those things you need for the perfect Notre Dame tailgate. I'm talking, mugs and flags and hats and all the merch that you need. So make sure to click on that link and support NDTV. We're here for all of you. Thank you.
And now it is time for our favorite part of the show, score predictions. And now, ultimately, I'll start first. I'm the pessimist of the group. Yes. Let's go. I have us winning, yes, indeed, at Central Michigan. They haven't really looked all that great. But give me 37-7 once again. Everyone's saying Notre Dame has scored 40 points in their last 3 games. I have no numbers to say why I got 37-7. I'm just taking it for the game and the leaderboard, which you see in a little bit.
Marches to the beat of his own drum. Why not? Why not?
I got 49-14 Notre Dame. I'm not a pessimist. We established that when I was on the show against Navy. I always shoot high. I think this is probably going to be the last of my high picks for Notre Dame. I think the rest of the schedule looking competitive. Obviously, Ohio State next weekend. You're not probably going to be putting up 49 points. Sorry to break the news to everybody out there. But this time, I think Notre Dame will get the numbers up there. 49-14. They allow a couple touchdowns maybe in the second quarter, but otherwise not too much to worry about.
Well, Jake, I think you can feel a little bit better about your pessimism here because I've got a closer game than you here. I'm erring on the side of a close game with this one. I think there's a chance Notre Dame could be due for a non-30-plus point victory here. I know NC State wasn't, but might as well have been with how quality the competition was. I got 41-14 Irish. I think Central Michigan, despite being so turnover-prone, could put some points on the board here, and Notre Dame will exceed that 40-point threshold. Not by much, but that record-setting territory, I think they'll get to it.
They will get to it, but let's also take a look at what else is going on around our staff here as well. Let's take a look at those staff picks. We've got some good ones. Elise Dahoney, 59-9. Look at that one, jumping right off the page. Maybe a 60-point contest for Elise, but let's also take a look at the leaderboard and see how everyone is doing within the brand scope of things. And I've heard there's a little bit of a sophomore push here. Ian sophomore, Tyler sophomore, Ryan sophomore. Don't worry though, junior and senior, Jake and Jake, we're coming up the rear. We're coming up the rear. We got it. We got you.
You picked Notre Dame to win all 3 games. Congratulations.
Not too big of a surprise.
Whatever.
Sophomore power.
Sophomore power, baby. Let's go. Bam.
Well, hey, sophomore power indeed. I think that's going to do the show. I don't think we have no bonus picks. We got nothing else. I think we're completely run out here on the second floor. But for Ryan Murphy, Tyler Reedy, Jake Miller in the back, and our fabulous crew, I'm Jacob Iron saying so long. Go Irish. We'll talk to you soon.